I come from the largest Muslim majority country on earth, not Saudi Arabia, not Pakistan, not Egypt, Indonesia. 270 million people spread across 17,000 islands, stretching from the tip of Sumatra to the jungles of Papua. More Muslims than the entire Arab world combined. If Islam were an ocean, Indonesia would be its widest shore. But Indonesia is not one thing. It is 1,000 things woven together into a fabric so complex that even Indonesians cannot fully describe it. We have the call to prayer and the gamelan orchestra, the mosque and the Hindu temple, the hijab and the batik kebaya, the strictness of Aceh, where Sharia law is enforced with public caning, and the freedom of Bali, where the Hindu majority lives a life that most Muslims would consider scandalous. Indonesia is not a monolith, it is a mosaic, and every piece has a different color. I grew up in one of the more conservative pieces, West Java, Sundanese culture, a world where Islam was not just a religion but the rhythm of life, woven into the food we ate, the clothes we wore, the songs we sang, the dreams we dreamed. A world where a woman's value was measured by her modesty, her obedience, and her ability to recite the Quran with a voice that could make grown men weep. I had that voice. I could recite the Quran so beautifully that my teachers said I was blessed by Allah. My father said I had been given a gift. My community said I was the pride of our neighborhood. But the voice that could recite the Quran could not pray. Not really. It could produce the sounds. It could shape the Arabic. It could make the audience cry. But when I tried to use that same voice to speak to God, not to perform for people, but to actually talk to God, the way a daughter talks to a father, the voice went silent, because I did not know the God I was reciting to, and he, it seemed, did not know me. My name is Sari. I am 29 years old. I am Sundanese, from Bandung, West Java, Indonesia, and this is the story of a voice that lost its God and found a different one, Bandung. The Paris of Java. That is what they called it during the Dutch colonial era, when the cool mountain climate and European architecture made it a retreat for colonial officials. Today, Bandung is a city of 3 million people, famous for its universities, its creative industries, its fashion scene, and its food. The food, especially, Sundanese cuisine is one of the great culinary traditions of Indonesia, and Bandung is its capital. I grew up in a neighborhood called Cimahi, on the western edge of Bandung. It was a middle-class area, not wealthy, not poor, rows of modest houses with tile roofs and small gardens. The muezzin's call echoed from the mosque 3 streets away. The smell of gorengan, fried snacks, drifted from the warung on the corner. Children played in the streets. Old men sat on their porches smoking kretek cigarettes. It was ordinary, warm, and deeply, completely Muslim. My father, Pak Agus, was a civil servant in the local government. He was a devout man, not extreme, not fanatical, but serious about his faith. He prayed 5 times daily without fail. He led the family in Quran recitation after Maghrib prayer every evening. He was respected in the community as a man of faith and integrity. He was also gentle, a quiet man who showed love through provision rather than words. He worked long hours to ensure we had enough. He never complained. He just provided. My mother, Bu Yeni, was a homemaker and a part-time teacher at the local Islamic school. She was the emotional center of our family. Warm, expressive, prone to tears at weddings and during Quran recitation. She wore the hijab always, the way Sundanese women do, elegantly, with the kerudung pinned neatly beneath the chin, framing a face that was almost always smiling. She was the one who taught me to recite the Quran. She would sit with me for hours, correcting my pronunciation, guiding my breathing, shaping the Arabic sounds until they were perfect. She said, "Sari, the Quran is the word of Allah. When you recite it beautifully, you are giving Allah a gift, and He will give you one back." I have 2 brothers, Adi, older by 3 years, and Reza, younger by 5. Adi was the responsible one, the good son who followed my father's footsteps into civil service. Reza was the wild one, rebellious in the mild Indonesian way, which means he listened to Western music and stayed out past curfew and smoked kretek in secret. My mother worried about Reza. She did not worry about me, because I was the good daughter, the one who wore the hijab without being asked, the one who fasted eagerly during Ramadan, the one who won the Quran recitation competitions. I need to tell you about the recitation competitions. because they shaped my identity in ways I did not understand until much later. In Indonesia, Quran recitation, tilawa, is a highly developed art form. There are national and international competitions, broadcast on television, with professional judges evaluating the beauty, accuracy, and emotional impact of the recitation. Talented reciters are celebrities. They perform at government events, at weddings, at public gatherings. They are the rock stars of Indonesian Islam. I was one of them. From the age of 12, I competed in tilawa competitions at the local, regional, and provincial levels. I won consistently. My voice, high, clear, with a natural vibrato that gave the Arabic an emotional depth beyond my years, was exceptional. Teachers said I had a gift from Allah. Judges said I had one of the best voices in West Java. My community treated me like a treasure, the girl who made them proud, who brought honor to the neighborhood, who proved that our little corner of Bandung could produce something beautiful. I loved it. I loved the attention, the praise, the feeling of being special. But more than that, I loved the Quran itself, the poetry of it, the music of it, the way the Arabic sounds rolled and soared and fell like waves on a shore. Reciting the Quran was the closest thing to worship I had ever experienced. When I recited, I felt something, an elevation, a transcendence, a connection to something larger than myself. But the connection was to the sound, not to the God behind it. I was connecting to the beauty of the Arabic, not to Allah. And when the recitation was over, and the crowd had applauded, and the judges had given their scores, I returned to my ordinary life, and the connection vanished. Like a musician who plays beautifully on stage and goes home to silence. The voice that could make others cry could not make me pray. This was my secret shame. The girl who was celebrated for her closeness to the Quran was, in reality, far from the God of the Quran. I knew every tajweed rule, every maqam, every breathing technique. I did not know Allah. And the distance between knowing the Quran and knowing God was the distance that would eventually break me open and lead me somewhere I never expected to go. The cracks began in university. I studied communications at one of Bandung's universities. A good school, modern, with a mixture of devout Muslims, moderate Muslims, and the kind of young Indonesians who were Muslim on their identity card and secular in their lifestyle. University exposed me to diversity I had not encountered in my sheltered Cimahi upbringing. I met Christians, Batak Christians from North Sumatra, Chinese Indonesian Christians from Jakarta, Minahasan Christians from Sulawesi. Indonesia has a significant Christian minority, about 10% of the population, and in university settings, the mixing is unavoidable. I also encountered doubt. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who ask questions about religion rather than simply accepting it. In my Islamic studies classes, the professors taught apologetics, the defense of Islam against criticism, but the very fact that Islam needed defending implied that there were criticisms worth addressing. And once I started hearing the criticisms, I could not unhear them. The criticism that hit me hardest was about women, about the status of women in Islam, about the hadith that said women are deficient in intelligence and religion, about the inheritance laws that gave women half what men received, about the marriage laws that allowed a man 4 wives, but a woman only 1 husband, about the dress code that covered women from head to toe, while men could wear whatever they pleased. I had been raised to accept all of this as divine wisdom. Allah knows best, my mother said. The rules are for our protection, my father said. But in university, I met women, Muslim women, not kafir, not Westerners, who challenged these assumptions, who said that the hadith about women's deficiency was either fabricated or misunderstood, who argued that the Quran's treatment of women was progressive for 7th century Arabia, but needed reinterpretation for the modern world, who were wearing hijab by choice and questioning whether choice was real when the social pressure was so total that removing the hijab was unthinkable. These conversations unsettled me, not because they made me doubt Islam immediately, but because they introduced the idea that doubt itself was permissible, that questioning the tradition was not the same as rejecting God, that a woman could love Allah and still ask, why are the rules different for me? The second crack was more personal. During my 3rd year of university, I experienced something that shattered my carefully constructed world. I was sexually harassed by a religious teacher, a ustadz, a man who taught Islamic studies at a private institution connected to the university. He was respected, devout, married. He wore the white robes. He quoted the Quran fluently. He was everything a Muslim man was supposed to be. And he cornered me after a session, touched me inappropriately, and said, "You should be grateful for the attention of a man of God." I will not describe the details. The details are mine, and I guard them carefully. What I will say is this. That moment destroyed my ability to trust the system. Not God. I still wanted to believe in God. But the system. The religious system that produced men like the Ustad. The system that gave men authority and told women to be grateful. The system that dressed holiness in white robes and power in Quranic fluency, and then used that power to violate the people it was supposed to protect. I told no one. In Indonesian Muslim culture, accusing a Ustad of harassment is social suicide. The woman is always suspected of lying, of exaggerating, of having tempted the man. The honor system protects the perpetrator and punishes the victim. I knew this, so I stayed silent. I swallowed the shame. I continued wearing my hijab. I continued winning recitation competitions. I continued performing, but the performance had cracked, and through the crack, the emptiness was visible. After university, I moved to Jakarta for work. I got a job at a media company, a content creation role that used my communications degree, and ironically, my voice. I narrated videos, hosted webinars, produced audio content. The work was good. Jakarta was overwhelming, a megacity of over 30 million people, drowning in traffic and humidity and ambition. I rented a room in a kos-kosan, a shared boarding house, the standard accommodation for young working women in Jakarta. My roommate was a woman named Grace. Grace was Batak, from North Sumatra, one of the predominantly Christian ethnic groups in Indonesia. She was cheerful, loud, direct, the opposite of my reserved Sundanese manner. She ate pork, which I found shocking. She did not wear hijab, which I found liberating to be around. She went to church on Sundays, which I found strange. But the thing that struck me most about Grace was her peace. She was not rich. She was not successful by Jakarta standards. She worked hard, earned modestly, and sent money home to her family in Medan. Her life was not easy, but she was at peace. Not the performative peace of someone who has mastered the art of appearing calm. The real peace of someone who is actually, genuinely, deep down okay. I envied that peace, because I was not okay. I had not been okay since the Ustads. I carried a constant, low-grade anxiety, the anxiety of a woman who has been violated and has told no one, who performs normalcy while the ground beneath her feet is crumbling. I smiled, and worked, and socialized, and recited, and nobody knew that inside. I was falling. Grace noticed. Because Grace was the kind of person who notices. She said one evening, while we were eating nasi goreng on the floor of our room, the way you eat in a Jakarta kos-kosan, sitting cross-legged, sharing food, she said, "Sari, you seem heavy, like you are carrying something. Do you want to talk about it?" I did not want to talk about it, but something about Grace, her directness, her warmth, her complete absence of judgment, made me feel safe, and I needed to feel safe. I had not felt safe in years. I told her, not about my faith crisis, that felt too dangerous, about the Ustad, about what he did, about the silence, about the shame, about the crack. Grace listened. She did not gasp. She did not cry. She did not say, "You should report him." She just listened, with eyes that were steady and kind and full of something I recognized but could not name. When I finished, she said, "Sari, I am so sorry. What happened to you was evil, and it was not your fault, not even a little bit." Then she said something that planted a seed I did not know was a seed until much later. She said, "There is a God who sees what was done to you, and he is angry about it, not at you, at the man who did it, and one day, that God will make it right, a God who sees, a God who is angry on my behalf, a God who will make it right." This was not the God of the Ustads. This was not the God who told women to be grateful for the attention of men. This was a different God, a God who stood with the victim, not the perpetrator, a God who raged against injustice instead of enabling it. I said, "What God is that?" Grace said, "His name is Jesus." I need to pause here and speak to any woman watching who has experienced what I experienced: harassment, abuse, violation, at the hands of a religious leader or anyone in a position of power. I want you to know, it was not your fault. You did not cause it. You did not invite it. You did not deserve it. The shame belongs to the perpetrator, not to you. And the God I have found, the the God Grace told me about, he sees you. He is angry on your behalf, and he will make it right. If this story is touching something inside you, stay with me and subscribe to this channel, because every testimony here is a voice for the voiceless. Grace did not push. She was Batak, which means she was direct, but she was also wise. She knew that a Sundanese Muslim woman does not convert to Christianity because a roommate tells her to. Conversion happens in its own time, in its own way, through a process that cannot be forced. But she offered. She said, "Sari, if you ever want to know more about Jesus, I have a Bible, and I have a church. Both are available. No pressure." Months passed. I did not take her up on the offer, but I watched her. I watched the way she prayed, not with memorized Arabic, but in Bahasa Indonesia, in her own words, as if she were talking to a friend. I watched the way she handled setbacks, with frustration, yes, but also with a trust that things would work out, that someone was in control. I watched the way she treated people, the security guard, the warung seller, the ojek driver, with a warmth that was not strategic or cultural, but seemed to flow from an internal source. And I compared. I compared Grace's peace to my anxiety, Grace's joy to my performance, Grace's freedom to my concealment, Grace's faith to my religion. The comparison was devastating, because I was the Quran champion. I was the one with the beautiful voice. I was the one who had been celebrated for my closeness to God. And yet Grace, who could not recite a single verse of the Quran, who ate pork, who did not fast during Ramadan, was closer to God than I had ever been. How was that possible? How could a pork-eating Batak Christian be more at peace with God than a Quran-reciting Sundanese Muslim? The answer, I realized, was not about the religion. It was about the relationship. Grace had a relationship with God. I had a performance for God. She talked to him. I recited to him. She knew him. I knew about him. 6 months after the nasi goreng conversation, I asked Grace for the Bible. She gave me an Indonesian Bible, Alkitab, we call it, and I began reading. I started with the Gospel of John, because Grace said it was her favorite, and from the first verse, I was captivated. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The word, firman. In Indonesian, the same word used for divine speech, for the power of God expressed through language. I had spent my entire life devoted to the word of the Quran, the sounds and syllables and intonation of divine speech. And here was John, telling me that the word was not just speech. The word was a person. The word was with God and was God. The word had become flesh and had lived among us. The God who speaks had become the God who lives. The voice from heaven had become a voice in the room. The distant, recited, performed God had become a present, incarnate, touchable God. I read, and I read. The wedding at Cana, Jesus at a party, turning water into wine, celebrating human joy. The conversation with Nicodemus, a religious leader, like the ustads, but one who was honest about his confusion. Jesus said to Nicodemus, "You must be born again, not reformed, not improved, born again. A completely new start." I wanted a new start. More than anything, I wanted to be born again, to leave behind the performing girl, the silent victim, the cracked vessel, to become someone new. I continued reading. Night after night, in the kos-kosan, while Grace slept or studied or talked on the phone with her family in Medan, I read. I read with the intensity of someone who has been starving and has finally found food. Not the intellectual intensity of a scholar examining a text, the desperate intensity of a soul examining its reflection in a mirror it has never seen before. I read about the healings of Jesus, the blind man who received sight, the lame man who walked, the leper who was cleansed. Each healing was a metaphor that applied directly to me. I was blind to the God who was real. I was lame, unable to walk toward the truth because shame had crippled me. I was a leper, untouchable, contaminated by an experience I could not speak about, and Jesus touched the lepers. That was the detail that undid me. In Jewish culture, touching a leper made you ceremonially unclean. The leper was the ultimate outcast, isolated, shamed, abandoned by community, and Jesus touched them. He reached out his hand and he touched the untouchable, not from a distance, not with a prayer or a ritual, with his hand, with physical, personal, human contact. Nobody had touched me with that kind of love since the ustads. Not touched. I do not mean I was not hugged or held. I mean nobody had touched the real me. The contaminated, shamed, cracked me. Everyone touched the performer. Nobody touched the person. Because nobody knew the person existed. Jesus touched the person. Through the pages of the Bible, across 20 centuries and 10,000 kilometers, Jesus touched the person. He touched Sari, not the Quran champion, not the good Muslim girl, not the performing voice, Sari. And his touch was not contaminating. It was cleansing. It was healing. It was the first touch in years that did not take something from me, but gave something to me. The woman at the well, the story that appears in so many testimonies on this channel, because it is the universal story. A woman with a shameful past, alone, avoiding the community, drawing water at noon. And Jesus goes to her. He does not wait for her to come to the temple. He goes to the well. He meets her where she is, and he offers her living water. I was the woman at the well, drawing from a well that did not satisfy, carrying a shame that I could not speak. And Jesus was coming to me, through grace, through the Bible, through the quiet voice inside me that said, "You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by what I did for you." My conversion happened on a rainy night in Jakarta. Jakarta rain is not like other rain. It is equatorial rain, sudden, violent, overwhelming. The sky opens and the water falls in sheets so thick that the world outside the window disappears. The sound of it on the tin roofs of the kos-kosan is deafening. You cannot hear anything else, just the rain. I was reading the Gospel of John, chapter 8, the story of the woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders drag her before Jesus and say, "The law commands us to stone her. What do you say?" And Jesus bends down and writes in the dirt. Nobody knows what he wrote. The text does not say. But when he stands up, he says, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." One by one they leave, starting with the oldest, until it is just Jesus and the woman. He says, "Where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She says, "No one, sir." He says, "Then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin. Neither do I condemn you." Those words entered me like light enters a dark room, because condemnation was all I had known. The condemnation of the ustads, who made me feel dirty. The condemnation of the culture, which would blame me if I spoke. The condemnation of my own mind, which replayed the incident endlessly and asked, could you have prevented it? The condemnation of a religion that measured my worth by my purity, and my purity had been taken from me. And Jesus, the Holy One, the sinless one, the only one who had the right to condemn, chose not to. He chose mercy. He chose compassion. He chose to defend the woman against the religious men who wanted to destroy her. The rain pounded the roof. Grace was asleep in her bed across the room, and I knelt on the floor of our tiny Jakarta room, and I surrendered. I said, in Bahasa Indonesia, "Yesus, aku menyerah, aku milikmu." Jesus, I surrender. I am yours. The rain was the soundtrack. The peace was the response, like a wave washing over me, warm and complete. The anxiety, the constant, grinding, years-long anxiety that had been my companion since the ustad, loosened its grip, not completely, not all at once, but enough to breathe, enough to feel, for the first time in years, that I was not alone, that someone saw me, that someone was angry on my behalf, that someone did not condemn me. Grace woke up. I do not know if it was the sound of my crying or the Holy Spirit who woke her. She looked at me, kneeling on the floor, tears streaming, hands open, and she said, in that direct Batak way of hers, "Did he find you?" I said, "Yes." She got out of bed and knelt beside me and held me. 2 Indonesian women from 2 different islands, 2 different cultures, 2 different religions, now one, kneeling together on the floor of a Jakarta kos-kosan, while the rain washed the city clean. The days after my conversion were unlike anything I had experienced. I woke up the next morning and the rain had stopped and Jakarta was doing what Jakarta does, honking, sweating, moving, hustling, living at maximum intensity. I walked to work through the morning traffic, the streets still wet, the puddles reflecting the sky, and I saw the city differently. The ojek drivers weaving between cars, each one a person with a story, loved by God. The ibu-ibu at the warung, frying tempeh and serving coffee, each one seen, each one known. The construction workers on the scaffolding, building another tower in a city that never stops growing, each one created with purpose. The world had not changed. My eyes had changed, and through my new eyes, Jakarta, chaotic, polluted, exhausting Jakarta, was beautiful, because it was full of people, and people I now understood were the thing God cared about most. I want to describe what the peace felt like, because peace is a word that gets used so often it has lost its meaning. The peace I experienced was not the absence of problems. It was the presence of God in the midst of problems. The anxiety about the ustad was still there, faintly in the background. The pressure of the double life was still there. The uncertainty about the future was still there. But all of it was held within a framework of love, like a child who is scared of the dark, but safe in her father's arms. The dark is still dark, but the arms are real, and the arms are stronger than the dark. I began to pray differently. In Islam, I had prayed in Arabic, memorized formulas, prescribed words, at prescribed times. Now I prayed in Bahasa Indonesia, my own language, my own words, at any time, about anything. I prayed on the bus. I prayed in the bathroom at work. I prayed while cooking nasi goreng. I prayed the way Grace prayed, conversationally, honestly, without polish or performance. I told God about my day. I told him about my fears. I asked him questions. I complained. I thanked him. I talked to him the way I talked to Grace, openly, naturally, as if he were in the room. And he was in the room. Every bus, every bathroom, every kitchen. The God who had seemed so far away during 24 years of Quran recitation was now closer than my own heartbeat, not because he had moved, because I had finally turned to face him. I lived as a secret Christian for about a year. In Indonesia, the consequences of a Muslim converting to Christianity are not as extreme as in some countries. There is no death penalty for apostasy, no Sharia court system, except in Aceh. But the social consequences are severe: family rejection, community ostracism, career damage, and in some cases, violence. There have been incidents of mobs attacking churches and converts in Indonesia. In West Java, where my family lived, the Islamic culture was strong enough that my conversion would be seen as a betrayal of everything: family, culture, community, Sundanese identity. My father would be devastated. My mother would be heartbroken. The community that had celebrated my Quran recitation would turn against me, so I hid. I attended Grace's church, a small Christian congregation in South Jakarta, in secret. I read the Bible in secret. I prayed to Jesus in secret. I was once again performing, but this time, the performance was reversed. I was performing Muslim on the outside while being Christian on the inside. The double life was exhausting. When I went home to Bandung for holidays, which was expected at least once a month, I performed the full Muslim routine, prayed with the family, wore the hijab, attended the mosque, even recited Quran when my mother asked, because refusing would raise questions. And each time I recited, I felt the dissonance. My voice shaping Arabic words that my heart no longer believed, producing beauty that my soul no longer inhabited. It was like being a ghost in your own life, walking through the rooms of your past, visible to everyone, but no longer there. The body in the hijab was mine. The voice reciting the Quran was mine. But the person inside was someone new, someone the family did not know, someone the community could not see, someone who was singing a different song in silence. The hardest moments were during Ramadan. The family fasted. I fasted with them, not out of belief, but out of love and the need to maintain my cover. But at iftar, when the family broke the fast together and my father said Bismillah, and everyone reached for the dates and the kolak and the esbuah, I would sit among them and feel the distance between where I was and where they thought I was. I was at the table, but I was not in the prayer, and the distance was the loneliest thing I have ever experienced. Grace was my anchor during this time. She held me when the double life became too heavy. She prayed for me when I could not pray for myself. She reminded me again and again that God saw the hidden things, not just the hidden sins, but the hidden faith, that my secret worship was real worship, that my silent songs reached God's ears even when they could not reach human ones. Grace's church became my sanctuary. It was a modest space, a rented shophouse converted into a worship hall. About 60 people, mostly Batak and Chinese Indonesian, with a few Javanese and Sundanese converts like me. The worship was loud, joyful, Indonesian, a mixture of Hillsong translations and local compositions, sung with the full-throated enthusiasm that Indonesians bring to everything. The first time I sang in that church, something broke open. My voice, the voice that had won competitions, that had recited Quran to standing ovations, was now singing to Jesus. And for the first time in my life, the voice and the heart were aligned. I was not performing, I was worshiping. The sound coming from my throat was not a demonstration of skill, it was a declaration of love. And the difference was total, complete, unmistakable. After the service, several people came to me and said, "You have an amazing voice." I smiled and said thank you, but inside, I was thinking, you should hear it when it is free, when there is no competition, no judges, no scores. When the voice is simply doing what it was made to do, sing to the God who made it. I want to pause and speak to anyone who has a gift, a voice, a talent, an ability that they have been using for performance instead of worship. I want you to know that the gift is not wasted. Every competition I won, every recitation I performed, every Arabic syllable I shaped, it was all preparation. Preparation for the moment when the voice would find its true audience, when the gift would find its true purpose. Your gift was given to you by God, and it was meant for God. Whatever you have been using it for, performance, approval, career, identity, it was meant for something bigger, for worship, for the pure, uncomplicated joy of giving back to God what God gave to you. If you have a gift that is looking for its purpose, stay with me and share this video with every artist, singer, performer, and creative person you know. I told my family after about 14 months of secret faith. The trigger, as with so many converts, was a practical matter. I was 28, and my parents were pressuring me to accept a marriage proposal from a Muslim man, a friend of my brother Adi, a good man from a good family. I could not marry a Muslim man, not because there was anything wrong with him, because I was a Christian, and building a life on a lie, pretending to be Muslim, raising Muslim children, performing Islamic rituals for the rest of my life, was a betrayal of the God who had set me free. I went home to Bandung for the conversation. I sat with my parents in the living room, the room where my mother had taught me Quran, where my father had led us in evening prayers, where the walls were decorated with Arabic calligraphy and photographs from Hajj. I told them, simply, honestly, without drama. I said, "Bapa, Ibu, I need to tell you something important. I have become a follower of Jesus Christ. I am a Christian." The silence was absolute, the kind of silence that has weight, that presses down on you, that makes the air thick and the room small. My mother spoke first. She said, "This is because of Jakarta. I told you Jakarta would ruin you." My father said nothing. He sat very still, his hands on his knees, his jaw tight. I could see the struggle in his face, the battle between the father who loved me and the Muslim who felt betrayed, the battle between his heart and his faith. Finally, he said, "How could you do this to us?" Not, "How could you do this to God?" To us. The betrayal, in his eyes, was not theological. It was familial. I had shamed them, in front of the community, in front of the mosque, in front of the neighborhood that had celebrated my Quran recitation, and held me up as their pride. My mother cried. The same tears she shed when I won competitions. Tears of emotion, of feeling. But now they were tears of grief. She said, "Your voice was a gift from Allah, and you have given it to someone else." That sentence broke my heart, because she was right. My voice was a gift, but she was wrong about who gave it. The God who gave me my voice was not the God I had recited to. It was the God I now sang to, and the gift had not been taken away. It had found its home. I want to be honest about what the next few months looked like, because I think converts sometimes paint the family reaction as a single event. It is not. It is a process. A long, slow, painful process with good days and bad days, and days where the phone rings, and you do not know which kind of day it will be. There were days when my mother called and we talked normally, about food, about the weather in Bandung, about Reza's latest escapade, and the conversion was not mentioned, and I could almost pretend that nothing had changed. And there were days when she called and her voice was thick with tears and she said, "I dreamed that you came back to Islam, Sari. In the dream, you were reciting again, and the whole mosque was crying. It was so beautiful." And I had to sit with the knife edge of her grief and my truth and the impossible gap between them. My father's process was different. He went silent. Weeks of silence. Not the angry silence of a man building a case. The processing silence of a man who does not know how to feel what he is feeling. My father is an engineer of emotions. He needs to disassemble them, examine each piece, understand the mechanism before he can respond. And the mechanism of losing his daughter to Christianity was the most complex thing he had ever encountered. When he finally spoke, it was not about theology. It was about identity. He said, over the phone, in a voice that was careful and measured, "Sari, I need to understand something. Are you still Sundanese?" I said, "Of course, Papa. I am Sundanese. I will always be Sundanese." He said, "And you still eat nasi timbel?" I laughed. "Papa, of course I eat nasi timbel. I'm not from Mars." I changed my faith, not my stomach. He almost smiled. I could hear it in his voice, the almost smile of a man who is trying to make sense of a world that has shifted beneath his feet and is looking for solid ground. And the solid ground he found was rice, Sundanese rice wrapped in banana leaf. If his daughter still ate nasi timbel, she was still his daughter. The rest could be figured out later. That conversation marked the beginning of the thaw. Not acceptance, not yet, but the beginning of a process that would, over months and years, slowly transform the ice into water. The weeks that followed were difficult. My father barely spoke to me. My mother called every day, crying, begging me to reconsider. Adi, my brother, was confused and distant. Reza, surprisingly, was the most understanding, perhaps because he had always been the family rebel. He had sympathy for anyone who broke the mold. But nobody disowned me. Nobody threatened me. Nobody called the police or the local Islamic authorities. My family was hurt, angry, confused, but they were also Sundanese, and Sundanese culture values family harmony above all else. They absorbed the shock, they processed the pain, and slowly, very slowly, they began to adjust. Part 8. The Voice Reborn. I want to tell you about what happened to my voice, because it is the part of this story that I love the most. After my conversion, I stopped reciting the Quran. That chapter of my life was closed. But the voice, the instrument that God had given me, was still there, still powerful, still beautiful, still hungry to be used. I started singing in Grace's church. At first, just in the congregation. Then, the worship leader heard me and invited me to join the team. Then, I started singing solos. And the response was overwhelming, not because my technique was superior, though it was trained, but because the voice now carried something it had never carried before. Authenticity. I was not performing for judges. I was singing for an audience of one. And that audience was the God who had found me on the floor of a Jakarta kos-kosan and said, "Neither do I condemn you." A worship leader at a larger Jakarta church heard me sing and invited me to record. I recorded several worship songs in Bahasa Indonesia, songs about grace, about freedom, about a God who sees the hidden things. The recordings were shared online and found an audience, Indonesian Christians who were moved by the voice and the story behind it. One of the songs, a song I wrote called Suara Yang Baru, which means a new voice, became quietly popular in Indonesian Christian circles. The lyrics are simple. I had a voice that could make the world weep, but my own heart was dry. You gave me a new voice, not louder, but truer. And now I sing to you, not for the crowd, but for the clouds to carry, back to the one who gave me breath. The song is my testimony in miniature. A voice that was trained for performance found its purpose in worship. A gift that was used to impress people was redirected to please God. And the difference between performing and worshiping, between reciting and singing, between skill and soul, is the difference between a caged bird and a free one. I want to tell you about a specific moment that captures the transformation. A few months ago, I was at a worship night, a larger gathering, about 300 people, at a church in central Jakarta. I was asked to lead a song. As I stood on the stage, microphone in hand, lights on my face, 300 people looking at me, I had a flashback. I was 12 again, on the stage of a tilawa competition, judges watching, audience waiting, the pressure to perform, to be perfect, to earn the score, to win the prize. And then the flashback dissolved, because this was not a competition. There were no judges, no scores, no winners or losers. There was just a room full of people who wanted to worship God. And my voice was not a weapon in a competition. It was an instrument of love. I opened my mouth, and what came out was not a performance. It was an offering. The same voice, the same trained competition-winning, Quran-reciting voice, but now carrying different cargo, not Arabic formulas, Indonesian love songs to Jesus, not recitation, worship, not performance, freedom. 300 people sang with me, 300 voices, blending with mine, rising toward the ceiling and beyond, toward the God who gave the voice and was now receiving it back. And I felt what I had been chasing since I was 12, the connection, the real connection, not to the audience, not to the sound, to God himself, the God who was not behind the Arabic. He was in the room, in the song, in the voice, in me. I cried, on stage, in front of 300 people, not from sadness, from the overwhelming realization that every competition, every recitation, every hour of practice, every Arabic syllable, it had all been preparation. Preparation for this moment, the moment when the voice would do what it was always meant to do. I am the free bird now, and the sky is wider than I ever imagined. Part 9. Where I am today. I am 29. I have been in Jakarta for 5 years. Let me tell you about my life. I work in media production, creating content, narrating videos, producing podcasts. My voice, the gift that defined my childhood, is still the center of my professional life, but it serves a different master now. I create content that tells stories of transformation, of hope, of faith, not always explicitly Christian content. I also work on secular projects. But everything I create is infused with the truth I carry, that every human being is seen by God, and no amount of shame or silence can change that. I am part of Grace's church, which has grown to about 100 members. I lead worship there regularly. I also participate in a network of Indonesian Christians from Muslim backgrounds, a growing community, larger than most people realize. We meet in small groups. We support each other. We share resources, stories, and prayers. The network stretches across Java, Sumatra, and Sulawesi, connecting believers who are often isolated in their own communities. Grace and I are still best friends. We no longer share a kos-kosan. We both have our own apartments now, but we see each other every week. She is the person who found me in the dark. She is the person who said, "There is a God who sees what was done to you." She is the reason I am standing, and I will be grateful to her until my last breath. My relationship with my family has improved. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. My mother calls every week. She no longer begs me to return to Islam. Instead, she asks about my life, my work, my friends, my health. She says, "I still pray for you, Sari." She means she prays to Allah for my return. I say, "I pray for you too, Ibu." I mean I pray to Jesus for her salvation. We are two women praying in opposite directions, but the love between us flows in the same direction. Toward each other, always toward each other. My father has softened. He came to Jakarta last year to visit me. He did not come to my church. He did not ask about my faith, but he came. He sat in my apartment and drank the tea I made, and looked around at my life, my books, my guitar, the small cross on my wall, and he said, "You seem well, Sari." That was all. 2 words. "You seem well." But from my father, the quiet man who shows love through provision, not words. Those 2 words were a novel, a declaration, a bridge. Reza knows everything and supports me quietly. Adi is still distant, but not hostile. And the community in Bandung, the neighborhood that celebrated my Quran recitation, has mostly moved on. A few people still whisper, but whispers fade. And the voice that used to recite for them now sings for God. And God does not whisper. He rejoices. I want to share one more thing about where I am today, because it is important. I am healing, not healed, healing. The wound from the ustads is not fully closed. I do not think it ever will be, completely. Some wounds leave scars that remind you, every day, of what happened, but the scars are no longer open. They are no longer bleeding, and the God who found me in the rain is the God who is slowly, gently, persistently healing the places that were broken. I went to a Christian counselor, a woman, an Indonesian psychologist who specializes in working with trauma survivors. She helped me understand that what happened was not my fault, that the shame I carried was misplaced, that the ustad's sin was his, not mine, and that healing was possible, not through forgetting, but through reframing, through seeing the experience through God's eyes, instead of through the culture's eyes. Through God's eyes, I was not a contaminated woman. I was a beloved daughter who had been harmed. Through God's eyes, the ustad was not a man of God. He was a man who had used God's name to do evil. Through God's eyes, my silence was not weakness. It was survival. And survival, in a culture that would blame me, was a form of courage. The counselor also helped me understand something beautiful, that my voice, the gift that the ustads had tried to claim, that the culture had tried to own, that the competitions had tried to commodify, was mine, given to me by God, belonging to me, and I could use it however I chose. I chose to use it for worship, and worship was the ultimate act of reclamation, taking back what was taken, singing over the silence, making beauty from ashes. Isaiah 61. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair, beauty instead of ashes. That is my life now. Not perfect beauty, not untouched beauty, the beauty of something that was broken and has been repaired with gold, like the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is mended with gold lacquer, making the repaired object more beautiful than the original. My cracks are filled with gold, and the gold is Jesus. I want to close with a message to 3 groups of people. To the women of Indonesia, and to women everywhere who have been silenced by shame. I want you to know that your silence is not permanent. The thing that was done to you does not define you. The shame that was placed on you does not belong to you. There is a God who sees what happened in the dark and who is angry about it, not at you, but at the person who hurt you. And that God offers not just justice, but healing. Not just condemnation of the wrong, but restoration of the wounded. You are not broken. You are being remade. And the new version of you is more beautiful than you can imagine. To the performers, the people who have spent their lives achieving, winning, impressing, performing for the approval of others, I want you to know that there is a freedom beyond performance, a place where the applause stops and the silence is not empty, a place where you do not have to be the best. You just have to be real. Jesus does not need your performance. He needs your heart. And when you give him your heart, the performance transforms from obligation into offering, from burden into gift, from cage into flight. And to the Indonesians, my beautiful, complex, diverse, 17,000 island nation, I want you to know that Jesus is not a Western God. Jesus was born in the Middle East, lived under occupation, died under empire. He is closer to a Jakarta ojek driver than to a Wall Street banker. He speaks Bahasa. He eats nasi goreng. He understands the gamelan and the muezzin and the sound of rain on a tin roof. He is here, in Indonesia, in the largest Muslim country on earth, and he is not leaving. My name is Sari Wulandari. I am 29 years old. I am Sundanese, from Bandung, West Java, Indonesia. I was trained to recite the Quran. I won competitions. I was the pride of my neighborhood. And I found Jesus. Not in a mosque or a church or a competition. In a kos-kosan in Jakarta, on a rainy night, with a Batak roommate who ate pork and loved God and said, "Did he find you? He found me. The God who sees, the God who does not condemn, the God who gave me a voice and then gave that voice a purpose. I have a new voice now, not louder, truer, and I sing with it every day, not for the crowd. For the God who made the rain and the tin roofs and the voice and the woman who kneels on the floor and says, 'I surrender, come and sing.' The rain is falling, and beneath the rain there is music. I want to add one last thing. Last month my mother visited me in Jakarta. She stayed for 3 days. On the 2nd day, she heard me practicing a worship song in my room. She stood in the doorway, listening. When I finished, she said, "And this is my mother, the woman who taught me Quran, the woman who cried when I told her I was a Christian." She said, "Sari, your voice is still beautiful, maybe more beautiful than before." I said, "Thank you, Ibu." She said, "I do not understand your God, but he has not taken your voice. He has made it bigger. Made it bigger." My mother, who has not accepted my faith, who still prays for my return to Islam, who still grieves in her own way, my mother heard the truth. The voice is bigger, not louder, not more skilled, bigger, because it is no longer a cage, it is a sky. And one day, inshallah, yes, I still say inshallah, because the word means God willing, and God is willing. One day my mother will hear the song the voice is actually singing, and she will recognize it, because it is the song that has been playing in her heart all along, the song of a God who sees, who does not condemn, who makes all things new. Until that day, I sing, for her, for me, for the women of Indonesia, for every voice that has been silenced, for every bird that has been caged. I sing, and the rain falls, and the music rises. Thank you for watching. In Bahasa Indonesia, we say terima kasih, which literally means receive love. And that is what I hope you will do. Receive the love that this story was made to carry. If this testimony moved you, I am asking 3 things. First, leave a comment. Tell me what part of this story spoke to you. Was it the voice, the silence, the rain, the roommate who noticed? Whatever it was, share it. Every comment is a new voice joining the song. Second, share this video. Send it to an Indonesian. Send it to a woman carrying shame. Send it to a performer looking for purpose. This video is for them. Third, subscribe. This channel is a choir. Every testimony is a voice. Every subscriber is a listener. And the song we are singing is changing the world, one story at a time. Until next time, be brave, be free, be heard. My name is Sari, and this is my testimony. Terima kasih. God bless you.